Hey guys, welcome to our live stream show. It is Sunday night, May 2nd. Sunday night, May 2nd. And we are just getting ready to start our live stream show here at Hubbard's Marina Studios. Got Captain Frank in the studio tonight. What's up, Frank?
How you doing, Dylan?
And we've got something special lined up for you guys. Yeah, I got some new technology to play around with. We might break it. We might mess it up. You never know.
Might not work at all.
No, it should work. We've tested it twice now.
All right. Well, that
And
should
actually, no, we've tested it 3 times now. My wife is very tired of the test phone calls, let me tell you.
Tell him.
But long story short, we are going to have the ability to have call-in guests. So tonight, we're going to limit it a little bit just because we're trying to figure out who is calling in and how we're working that all out. We're talking about upgrading our phone system in the office, and once we upgrade our phone system in the office, then we'll be able to do this a little bit more cleanly, kind of like a radio show would. So we're excited about that for sure. And then also, tonight our calling guests lined up are going to be John Martin, our resident 39-hour long-time guest. I think he's been fishing the 39-hour longer than I've been alive.
He's pretty much got like a hole in the bunk that he sleeps in, right? He just kind of fits in there.
Yeah, he's definitely been fishing with us for a very long time. He knew my grandfather well, so we're going to talk to him a little bit about history and background and kind of how he got started and what it was like back in the day. And then talk to him a little bit about Amberjack fishing, techniques, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. And later on in the show, the man, the myth, the legend, my cousin Captain Garrett will also be calling in. Garrett's got 3 children now, so we have been very
Blessed.
kind of consistent would be a good word for it in trying to get him to do the show, but unfortunately been struggling with schedule conflicts, etc. So before we get rolling, now that we kind of showed you or told you what we're expecting tonight, some of you guys have been commenting about the audio and the video. The show has not begun. So the show will start at 8:30 p.m. right around that time. We're still getting a few things set up here on our end. And then the audio won't always start when the show starts. Sometimes the screen will just come up without any audio, and then we'll unmute when we're ready to start talking, and then we'll pull up the video closer to around 1 o'clock. All right? So, or not 1 o'clock. I don't know where I came up.
So just chill out and wait for it.
All good things come to those who wait, is the old saying. So we are going to be getting started here very shortly, just waiting on a few more items to get pulled up. And also want to thank, I saw a few people send through some stars. Appreciate that greatly. We're trying to pull up the record of who sent stars already. I know I saw Dennis Mills had sent 500 stars. Really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much, Dennis. And Jerry Sloan with 200 stars. Barry Long with 200 stars. Vicky Poole with 200 stars again. Richard Blazak, Betty Brown, appreciate all you guys who have sent stars. If you're watching on YouTube, the stars that we periodically thank people for are just a way through Facebook to kind of show your support, and it enables us to continue to procure. I love that word. More.
I don't even know what it means.
More technology. It means buy.
I know. I'm just kidding.
I don't think you were. It allows us to continue to grow our live stream show and get more technical. So we're very appreciative of that. And Rick Rogers with 1,000 stars. Appreciate you, bud. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. And for those of you who sent stars, especially. If you're watching on YouTube, you're more than welcome to watch on YouTube, and I've heard some people prefer YouTube versus Facebook, but if you're watching on Facebook, that is where you can send the stars, and then also you have to comment at least one time on the Facebook stream in order to be eligible to win the free trips we give away later on in the show. So again, if you want to be eligible to win those free trips, you do have to, again, watch, or you don't have to watch on Facebook. You can watch on YouTube, but you have to at least comment one time on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream. So go to Facebook, look up Hubbard's Marina, and then once on the Hubbard's Marina page, find that live video, comment one time. All you have to do is say anything one time, and that enters you for a chance to win those free trips. So keep that in mind as we go through the show. And then also, once you are entered to win, you have to remain viewing the show. And if you get picked as a lucky winner, you do have to then at least claim that free trip by texting us at our main office number your full home address. That allows you to claim the free trip you won. And Jason Huffman, appreciate those 1,000 stars, man. Thank you very much. And a few others came through while I was talking there. Karen Dean Hartog and Sean Porchkey, appreciate you guys as well. So we are just about ready to get rolling. You ready, Frank?
I've been ready, buddy.
Ready. All right, we're all ready. So with that, let's get rolling. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Again, Captain Dylan Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina. We got Captain Frank in studio with us tonight. If you have questions, you can text them at that phone number in front of Captain Frank there at the bottom. And if you get picked as one of those lucky winners to claim that free trip, that's the phone number that you text. So let's get into this thing and show you guys what we've been seeing inshore, and then we'll work our way offshore and show you what we've been seeing nearshore and offshore. So first things first, with what we've been seeing nearshore, or inshore. I'm on a roll tonight, messing things up.
You want me to take over?
Yeah, I don't know if you know how to work all this stuff,
don't.
though. Luckily now with Josh, I don't have to work much.
Or we just start talking. Never stop.
The black drum bite's been going definitely pretty good around the docks, bridges. We've been seeing those black drum kind of resurge. David Pruitt with 1,000 stars. Shout out to David. Thanks, buddy. And dang, man, how about that water clarity lately?
Yeah.
Crazy clear. Our dock behind the Florida, it is completely dry land on one side, but on the east side of our dock behind the Florida, it's typically probably around 10 to 12 foot deep there, I would imagine, from the Florida pulling in and out, and you could see bottom.
Is that right?
You could see shells on the bottom. It was nuts. A manatee swam by today, and you could see like the individual seagrass on its back. It was nuts, man. Wow. It was really cool.
I wish I got to see that.
Yeah, and you could see all the snook under the dock, all the mangroves. It was like an aquarium tank under the dock today. It's absolutely crazy, the water clarity right now. But off topic, back to the fish. So black drum around the bridges, docks. We've also been seeing a lot of these mackerel around the jetty, around Johns Pass Bridge, and obviously this one was caught in Tampa Bay around the range markers. Also the deeper edges of the grass flats, where those grass flats kind of butt up to that deeper water. We've been seeing a lot of those mackerel too. Miney Lewis, appreciate that. Nick Nieves with 500 stars. Thanks, buddy. Some nice mackerel, like I've been saying. They love those flashy, fast-moving lures on the mackerel, and also live white bait or even dead white bait floated out there. Mangrove snapper, man, they're filling in thick. Inshore and nearshore, too. We've been seeing a lot of those mangrove snapper. You've been catching some on the 10 hour.
I figure we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about the all-day trips.
Don't skip ahead of me.
I know, that's why I'm holding back.
Holding back. All right, so we've been seeing a lot of redfish action for sure around the grass flats, mangrove shorelines, oyster bars, islands, seawalls. The redfish have been thick. Inside the pass at the dock, a lot of the kids fishing off the dock have been seeing the redfish too. There's one of our dock master, Taryn. He has been working the afternoon shift, and he will show up for his 12 o'clock midday shift at like 6 a.m. And fish for like 6 hours, and then work for another 6-7 hours, and then fish until we kick him off the dock.
I mean, that's a good way to do it. That's a good way to live.
Yeah, he's definitely hooked on fishing, and we're happy to have him a part of our team. Josh, can you scroll up a little bit? I think we missed one. But as I was saying, also inshore, the sharks, that warm water has been picking up, and that warm water has brought with it a lot of those sharks, man. They've been catching a lot of bonnet heads, a lot of black tips. This one, I would guesstimate, would be probably one of those black tips or spinners. Juvenile sharks are almost impossible to identify until they're around about 4 to 5 foot. That's when they start to get a little bit more clear definition to them, and you can kind of tell the species apart. So
I think that's an Atlantic sharpnose.
Yes, that's a good idea. With the white dots, that would make more sense. Atlantic sharpnose. Good call, Captain Frank. I saw the black tip on the fin by his right hand. So that's what was making me think about it. But the white dots are pretty much dead giveaway for those Atlantic sharpnose most of the time. Angelo, appreciate those 3,000 stars, man. Appreciate you. The snook bite as well. We've been seeing a lot of snook stacked up in the passes. They're definitely starting to move into the passes more and more out of that back bay, and we're definitely excited to what's to come. Mike Solar, Michelle Lorenzo, appreciate you guys as well with those stars. Let's see what's next on these photos. We've been seeing a lot of snook in the bays as well. Our buddy John Sasser has been fishing all over the area through the night and into the daytime with his buddies, catching a lot of them snook on the soft plastic paddle tails, the flare hawk jigs, the bombers. John is a snook catching machine for sure. And then back to the flats, a lot of flats. All these photos are from Jovan McNeil with Cloud9 Outdoor Adventures. A lot of the kids' photos are. He does a kids fishing camp, and been taking the kids out there and catching a lot of these nice fish with local charter captains. A lot of trout action, too, around the grass flats during the day. Those edges, cuts, little potholes is what you're looking for. Even around the docks and around...
I want a shirt like that.
I think I have a shirt like that.
Yeah?
Yeah, pretty sure I do. But we'll see. Maybe I'll wear it for one of these live shows. Would you like that?
Well, no, I'd just rather have one. I mean, you can just give me one.
Yeah, maybe I'll buy one. I don't know if they have one in your size, though. I mean, they have like kids extra small, and then they have small buffalo like me, you know.
That's awesome.
They don't have the in-betweens.
Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate that.
All right, let's go Nearshore and show you guys what we've been seeing Nearshore.
I could just cut it off at the top because my abs would just rip through.
Yes,
and,
crop top it. Yeah. Always a solid choice.
That's right.
How about that hogfish bite, Frank? How's that been going?
Wait, really? This is how you start me off, right? Yeah,
I kicked it
awesome.
to you.
It's awesome. So we have been seeing a few hogfish, but it's not to the point where we were spending, the entire 10-hour trip hunting for them. That's. Do you want me to just go into the 10-hour?
Yeah,
right
go into it.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've been seeing a few hogfish on the 5-hour.
Yeah.
When they were biting well, it seemed like we would catch more hogfish on our 10 hours than we would our 5 hours because you were fishing about the same area, a little further on the 10-hour.
Right.
But you just had more fishing time and better, more experienced anglers that were kind of dialing in on them a little better, using the right tackle, and you guys were coaching them. And it definitely seemed like a good 10-hour trip.
Yeah.
Bring home 20, 30, even sometimes 40 keeper hogfish.
Yep.
Whereas the bites slowed down a lot, the 10 hours kind of shifting deeper, and the half-day trip still catches a few here and there.
Right.
But seeing more hogfish on a 5-hour than a 10-hour is what I'm getting.
Right. So what we did was we slowed. They're still getting a few. They're just not in the numbers that we were getting them in. So I started pushing out further and further on our 10-hour trips, and before we knew it, we're fishing 90 foot of water, and maybe even
100 foot of water.
I've hit 100 foot a couple of times.
103 foot.
Yeah, and so What does that mean? That means we started getting into some red groupers, and we haven't been getting into a lot of those on our 10-hour trips, and they're really great to see. We got a nice half a dozen of them or so, maybe a few more than that on our last 10-hour, and then we're getting unbelievable amounts of lane snappers. I mean, the lane snapper bite is you should be able to get your 10 limit. Mm-hmm. If you know what you're doing, and the mangrove snappers too. We're having a great bite on those too. We got 25 mangrove snappers, and maybe 20 of them were caught by the same 3 or 4 people because they know what they're doing. And a lot of you guys that are watching this show do know what you're doing, and it might be time to start stepping on that 10-hour trip, and because if I can get some more guys that know what they're doing with those mangroves, doing the double snell, ultra point hooks, that kind of deal, I think you could have a really good time with them. And the more you catch, the more that you can get them fired up. But we're having some really good trips on that 10-hour, shy of the hogfish thing. Other than that, I mean, it's we're seeing lots of vermilion snappers too. It's fun. I'm having just to be able to switch it up.
Yeah.
For so long we've been hogfish, and that's like the only thing we focus on. And there was a lot of people that were disappointed that we weren't seeing a whole lot of groupers then. Different depths, different fish, and that's what we've been
switching it up.
Forced into doing basically.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not just seeing a few lane snappers. We're like getting 300 a trip.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is we're fishing deeper. We're fishing a different area for a different set of species. You're still catching a few hogfish here and there. But essentially, you're trying to communicate that maybe the bait suggestions, tackle suggestions have changed a little bit with this different area.
Maybe instead of having 5 dozen per person, maybe if you have 2 of you, get a 5 dozen bucket for the 2 of you versus each one of you, and may even 3 of you could get away with it, because there are times where you're dropping that shrimp, you do see a couple hogfish come up and you do want to have them, and the mangrove snapper do love them too.
Yep.
So it's not like you're
a good reason to have shrimp, but maybe not as many shrimp as if you were targeting hogfish all day.
Correct. And I think Sven, one of our regulars, he ended up with 6 or 7 mangroves on his last trip, keeper red grouper, keeper hogfish, and he was fishing with shrimp.
Yeah.
The whole time, and that's all he does fish with. But he was trying for those hogfish, and that's what he wants to catch when he gets on the boat, and he's like ride or die. He's like I'm gonna
double down,
and he does really well. He's been doing really well, and a lot of my other regulars have too, because you know how a mangrove snapper bite goes in 100 foot of water. It's a little tough to feel them unless you've done it before.
Yeah.
So the people that are like coming out from out of town that may not be used to that kind of fishing, you
stick to the squid and catch a bunch of lanes.
And catch a bunch of lanes in vermilion, sure.
Yeah, but then if you're more experienced and you know what you're doing, maybe bring 2 spinning rods, one with the hogfish setup, and then one instead of the hogfish setup. What I would suggest is probably like maybe a 1 or even a 2 ounce egg sinker, and then do a double snell rig on it.
Well, that does work a lot of times. When you're getting into 100 foot of water, I mean, you really got to know that you have to cast that rod out. You cannot just drop straight down with a 2 ounce lead in 100 foot of water. You have to know what you're doing. Because I've seen a few people that I know have watched the show. They know they got all the right tackle and everything, and they just don't know. They put it on.
They don't know how to fish it.
They don't know how to fish it. You can't just drop a 2 ounce lead straight down in the middle of a party boat with 40 people on it.
Yeah.
That does not work. You got to work, with the people next to you that are casting also theirs, and you're crossing over each other.
And you got to fish the bow. That's the biggest thing, because you can't drop a 2 ounce lead at the back of the boat for sure.
Yeah, unless you just happen to have the current on that one corner or something like that. But the bow is where everyone is. We've already talked about the back of the boat being the most tangled issue. But.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times a day we get phone calls about, I wanted to book a trip, but the back of the boat wasn't open, so I'm not booking. When's the next day that the back of the boat's open? And it's like
our bow catches triple the amount of fish, and I'll tell you why is because I have the anglers up there that know what they're doing, and
people that know what they're doing and come out a lot choose the bow because they know
they want to get out of that area in the back of the boat where the mentality is, if I don't have the back of the boat, and I don't know how to change it. Yeah. I think it's so after so many years, but
it's different too, because what I find ironic is on a 39-hour trip, the back of the boat will still often catch more fish, but that's because on a 39-hour trip, a lot of our more experienced anglers still fish the back of the boat because they're of a different generation and different era of fishing, when back then the back of the boat was the best place to fish.
Yeah.
We're going to talk to John Martin here in a few minutes. He's going to call into the show, and he's one of those guys that fishes the back of the boat. But on a 39-hour trip, a lot of the what I would say would be experienced regulars will fish the back of the boat because they've been doing it. I mean, John's been fishing with us since the 60s and 70s.
I'm not saying that the back of the boat doesn't catch fish, and neither you, but what we're saying is, like, there's so many people, unless you have the back of the boat full of regular guys that know what they're doing, you're going to get the tangles. And there's so many people that come out on the 10-hour trip that only, fish once or twice a year, versus you're talking about, the back of the boat where you have guys that are coming 30 overnighters a year, if not some of them more, every one of them or half of them at least. And those guys all know what they're doing, and they're keeping each other from getting. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the devil, John must have heard us talking. So let's don our earphones and bring on John Martin.
See how this works.
Does this make me look cool?
Caller 5, you're on the air. Go.
John, you there, buddy? Uh-oh. We got to switch it to. See, I told you guys we'd break it. Are you there, John?
All right, hey, can you hear me okay, fellas?
We can hear you now.
All right, man. Well, I'm honored to be a call-in here, brother.
Yeah, this is first time ever we've had a call-in guest to the show.
Well, I need to make a quick inshore report for the beginning of your show. Okay. I actually caught 2 brown trout pin fishing, so they must be thick.
What do you mean by brown trout?
I'm confused.
Well, I caught 2. Y'all talked about trout at the very beginning. I caught 2 small trout pin fishing.
Oh, you said brown trout.
Aren't they brown? What are they?
Speckled trout.
Speckled trout. Hey, I told you I'm not an inshore guy. I'm a pinfish master inshore. You'd catch 2 speckled trout.
That one left field quick.
Yeah, right?
I let them go, but there's brown trout. I guess that comes out the back of the boat.
I was thinking we had a septic problem on one of the boats.
Oh, man. And we just started off with a bang. So, John, we were just having a conversation about you, in a way, on our 10-hour trip. We were talking about how the front of the boat is kind of the preferred the preferred area, because you have more room, and a lot of the more experienced anglers will fish at the front of the boat because that's where a lot of experienced anglers fish. And I was bringing up how on 39-hour trips, still a lot of the more experienced anglers prefer the stern, and how the stern will often catch more fish. And Frank was saying, well, it's a little different. My interpretation of it and my strong belief is there's not one spot on any boat better than any other, but the best spot to fish where the most fish is going to be caught is where the more experienced anglers are grouped together, because they're working together, they're making sure they're not getting tangled up. And then let's say John Martin, Frank, and myself are lined up on the side of the boat. Frank catches a fish, then that gets excitement going. And as we saw in those underwater videos, I think it was probably maybe a month or 2 ago, we were watching those underwater videos of the mangrove snapper and how they react. When something commotion happens, other ones come there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you get a little feeding frenzy going. Then I catch one, John catches one, and now all of a sudden between 3 of us, we're catching all the fish on one side of the boat.
Yeah, and the natural, somebody that isn't used to doing something like this, they're naturally thinking, oh, they put the back of the boat on, or they put only that side of the boat is. It's.
I love those complaints.
I know.
I love those complaints. That's always an interesting one. Oh, the captain made sure only his buddies in the front of the boat caught fish, or only his buddies in the back of the boat caught fish. It's like, we're good. But
the funniest complaint that I ever saw was, it's been about 2 or 3 years ago during red snapper season. I was actually fishing right outside the door up there on the bow on the starboard side, and I was having a pretty good trip. And Captain Brian came down there, and this gentleman complained. He said, and you got to understand, there's 50 people on the boat, and he's saying, I don't know what, but you're putting only that guy right there on the fish, and I'm upset about it. And Brian said, man, I wish I was that talented. But as far as people catching fish in different spots of the boat, I'm reminded of something your granddad said years ago, Dylan. He told me that 20% of the fishermen catch 80% of the fish they always have and they always will. And that, to me, and I also tell people when I'm out there on the boat, I tell them, well, people always ask me where the best spot to fish is, and I tell them on the video, because they're always biting on the video. That's where you want to be. But you're absolutely right. Where the experienced people are obviously going to produce more. But also, I think you're seeing something that is somewhat new in that people, the way they're jigging now with these fast jigging, the high-speed jigging, and that is definitely better up on the bow in places where you got more room. It's not really even that good to do on the stern because you just don't have the room you need to stay tangle-free. And I see a lot of people who are really into jigging going up on the bow now all the time.
Yeah, that slow pitch jigging is definitely becoming more and more popular, and I would agree completely. Some of those more unique styles of fishing, like Frank was talking earlier about fishing deeper on the 10-hour trips, they're fishing as deep as 100 foot of water and using those lighter kind of knocker rig style setups for mangrove snapper and hogfish and stuff like that. You really need to be up on the bow. The same thing holds true on the 39-hour trips for slow pitch jigging or flat lining or knocker rigging. You don't want to be knocker rigging off the stern unless the current, one of those rare trips where the current and the wind are going in the same direction and your lines are going directly off the back of the boat. And John,
I agree with that 100%.
John, you've been fishing the 39-hour trip for many, many years. Tell us, how many times does it happen where your line goes directly off the back of the boat where you could do pretty much whatever style of fishing you want and you're not going to get tangled up?
I'd say it's 50-50 at best. I mean, this last trip, I was fishing spot 5, which is pretty much dead center of the stern.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things that is overlooked about fishing skills is the ability to get out away from the boat and cast. So, you're right about the current. Quite often it doesn't cooperate, but you have to be able to adjust. People always say like they really want a corner spot on a boat quite often. And yes, it's good to fish on the corner, but if you're not able to actually cast, and I highly recommend not casting a boat rod if you're not used to it, but if all you're doing is dropping straight down,
it's useless.
Then it doesn't really matter where you're fishing because you can't take advantage of the corner spot. I can cast these conventional reels where you've probably seen me do it quite a long distance. And, so being on the corner opens up a whole new venue to me that the other fishermen might not have. So practice. I tell people about casting. I said, go out, to like the Skyway or something and just practice it because you're going to get bird nests and everything else. Just practice it. Don't be afraid to get the bird nest. Fix it. You'll learn. But all of that stuff is a learned skill. I actually learned how to do that from Ray Mack. You might remember him.
Yeah, I learned from Timmy Shimp and Red. My dad showed me probably 37 times how to cast a conventional reel, and I went on a 39-hour trip by myself when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and Timmy made fun of me because I was struggling with the mangrove snapper, and he was like, give me that reel, and he showed me how to cast like a couple times, and I got it immediately. The next trip, my dad was like, oh, okay. So I see how it is. You won't learn from your dad, but you'll learn from from a crew member, and I was like, I don't know. But you brought up an interesting point about the stern and how the corners give you the option to cast. The same thing holds true once you're in the front half of the boat, because what you're referring to, I believe, and what my impression is, in the middle of the stern and fishing along the back half of the boat, along the sides of the boat, especially on the Florida, you're closer to the water. So it makes it almost impossible to cast unless you have someone next to you that lets you cross over their rod to cast out.
Right.
But if you're in the front half of the boat, you're higher up off the water, and as long as you're not working with a super long leader, you can cast by just underhand casting with your rod tip straight up and down, which it makes life easy. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually do it from the center of the stern, but granted, I've done it a long time. The key to casting, practice, obviously, and this sounds real obvious, but most people don't practice it. Don't worry about the bait. In other words, yeah, you need to worry about tangling with someone. But as far as casting, you're casting the lead.
That's what I tell
the
people.
bait will follow, because so many people are so focused. They'll have their lead like 3 feet from the tip of their rod, and they're looking at the bait, and they do some kind of alley-oop thing that one guy did. It kept doing it on the boat, and I said, "That's an Australian cast." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "It's a boomerang. It comes right back at you." But you got to cast the sinker, and the bait will follow. But it's all about practicing. Once again,
John,
if you can go to Skyway, that's great. If not, do it in your yard.
And John, you would say that instead of having that lead 3 feet from the tip, that it should be right on the tip, right?
Yeah, pretty much right on the tip. Sometimes I'll have it,
yeah.
Maybe a half an inch from the tip. But yes, because you got to get that pop.
Yep.
And that's the popping motion that gets that lead out there that most people like. The worst thing to do is have it your sinker 3 feet down and trying to do it. You're better off just dropping straight down if you're going to do that, because it's not going anywhere.
Right.
So me personally, that's why I have those Bull Bay rods built the way that they're built, and that's why a lot of people, including Smokey, really like those kind of the old Tiger stick style rods,
Tigers, yeah.
where you have a stiffer backbone, but you have a really kind of playful, more soft.
Yeah, it's
tip.
like a spring.
Yeah, and so I like keeping the lead a little further, not right up on the tip, but maybe like a foot away, or maybe even a 1.5 feet, 2 feet away, because you're using the momentum of the lead to further bend the rod, and it takes a little bit more timing efforts, but you almost cast forward first and then bring the momentum back, and that pendulum action of that lead going back makes that rod bend, and that's when you spring it forward, and you're not only getting the spring effect, the pop that John is talking about, but then you're also getting a little bit more momentum behind that lead when you're using one of those kind of fancy newer rods with that newer technology that allows that kind of springy soft tip but a more stiff backbone. John Martin, I can say, uses the more classical era of do you still chain your hooks, John?
Yes. Yeah, I still do. Basically, the way I look at it is if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Amen.
Kind of thing. So I'm probably more classical, definitely.
Yeah, and you cannot argue with your results. But what I'm talking about, guys, is chaining hooks. So when the double hook thing came out, I think you were still working as a crew member.
Yeah,
we all did it on the way out.
Yeah, we had a lot of customers that would request us
Yeah.
to chain the hooks, and they would, throw us a few extra bucks for doing it for them, because it's a pain in the arse.
Yeah, and we do it the whole way out. I remember as a kid,
money was money when you're younger like that. It was like
the crew would always throw me a couple bucks, and I'd spend an hour chaining hooks together. And basically, what we're talking about is the old school style mustads that are kind of a softer metal, and you'd open up one of the eyes of the hook and stick the other hook to it.
Just as a tip to people, if they want to do it, I use two tools. I use what they call a diagonal set of pliers, where you clamp down like you're almost cutting where the eye hook is.
Yeah.
And then I use a more what they call lineman's pliers on the back side of it to crimp it back. So I don't really bend it like some people do, because that'll snap it. One thing I would say, the snell rigs work fine.
Mm-hmm.
The only caution I would say to people, because I've seen so many people over the years get hooked by that second hook.
Yeah.
If you get like a porgy on your bottom hook, remember that top hook is flailing in the breeze. You better pay attention to it and know where your hooks are, which is something when you have them in tandem like I do, you don't, because you got a porgy is the most dangerous fish out there when it comes to hooking yourself. Because they will just
you got to watch out for them porgies.
Ask
Smokey.
Dude, I've had so many bad things with a porgy.
And experienced anglers too, trying to take a porgy off, and they get hooked by that second hook. Just a piece of advice. A
porgy and a yellowtail. A yellowtail will go crazy like that too, and a big 2, 3, 4 pound yellowtail will be just as dangerous as a porgy sometimes. But basically, what we're talking about is chaining the hook. So you're putting you've got one hook, and you put the second hook behind it. So I don't know how to do it with my hands. So you're putting the
and also,
pretend this is.
I'm trying to show it on video, John. It's an epic fail. But basically, instead of double snelling your hooks,
we'll make a video on it.
Yeah. Instead of double snelling your hooks, you're putting 2 hooks together. So we will make a video next time I see John for a 39-hour trip. We will do the difference between a double snell and a chained hook, and you'll have to show your tools.
Dylan, a key tip to people, and especially when they're snelling them, because you can adjust the length so well, is adjust. People always ask me how big a hook to use or how far to adjust your hook on the snell. I tell them, look at the bait or whatever size bait you're using, and that's what you want to make the hook adjustment, you know, because you want a streamlined look on that bait as possible, because people forget about presentation. Presentation is key to catching fish. The way I look at it, it's like if you go to a cafeteria and every piece of pie is basically the same, but there's something about that one piece that makes you want to reach over there and get it. Well, it's the same thing, especially on a party boat. You've got this smorgasbord of bait out there. If your presentation is better than everybody else's, I think it just adds to your chances to catch a fish.
Yeah. You know, that's pretty much the best analogy for 3 fat guys to.
Amen to that.
Like pie. John, let's use pie.
Me and Frank, every time we get together, we always end up talking about food. So that's why we were giggling while you brought up pie. But what you're getting at is important, and I think that's why I moved quickly to the double snell rig, just because you can tailor your hook separation to your bait. Like on a 39-hour, I might leave a ½ inch or even 3/4 of an inch between my hooks, but on a 10-hour trip, I might leave that apex of that second hook right up on the eye of the first, keeping them closer together, allowing me to use a smaller bait and keep that more natural presentation. But I think you hit on something important too there, John, is casting. What we talked about when you first called is kind of what I always jokingly call 102. 101 is making sure that you're presenting that bait naturally, you're holding bottom, you can feel that lead and keep that line tight enough to feel the lead but not disturb the lead on the bottom, and you're hooking your bait in such a way to prevent it from causing a tangle on the way down. If you master those 4 things and you're getting good with that, that's when you move to kind of 102, the next level, which would be trying to cast and get your bait out away from the boat while maintaining that prevention of tangling on your way down, holding bottom, and being able to feel the lead. And it's tricky once you cast way out there. A lot of people can cast out there, but then once you cast out there, a lot of times their line will end up straight up and down. And casting out and keeping your line out is a whole different set. That's almost 103.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit about that, John?
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, being able to work it and knowing where your bait is. I mean, I know people think it's crazy, but I kind of know where my bait is relative to what the bottom is all the time. But it's just that's a lot of experience. It only comes with experience, for sure.
Yeah. Practice makes perfect, that's for sure, and it takes a lot of practice to get down there. So, John, we want to keep talking a little bit, but we are a little overdue here. Let's go ahead and give away our first trip of the night. We're going to give away a 5-hour half day, and then we're going to go back into our conversation a little bit. We got ahead of ourselves with John, so we're going to go back a little bit with John. But let's find out who won a 5-hour half day for 2 guests. Terry Wilson.
All right, and what you can pronounce. Congratulations, Terry.
Golf clap. Congratulations, Terry. Remember, if you're picked as a lucky winner, you do have to text that phone number below, Captain Frank there, your full home address within about 5 minutes to claim that free trip, Terry Wilson. And in order to win free trips, you do have to comment 1 time on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream. You can watch on YouTube, but you got to comment 1 time on the Facebook stream in order to be eligible to win. So, John, back to our conversation here. You do almost every Friday, I would say 97.3% of Friday overnighters through the year. So you're almost always on the boat on those weekend trips for people to kind of pick your brain on the way out and talk to you between spots and to learn more about chain and hooks or casting out and chat with John while we're loading, while we're heading out, et cetera, et cetera. But John, I wanted you to talk to the people a little bit more about your background, your history. When did you start fishing with us at Hubbard's Marina?
Well, I give you a very brief before I get to the actual starting fishing with you guys. I grew up here in north central Florida, so it's all about freshwater fishing, really. And so I fished
For brown trout.
ever since I can remember. But I started going. I never really went saltwater fishing much growing up. But I started going with a buddy of mine. Asked me if I wanted to go fishing, and I went over to St. Augustine, and we got on one of those cobia runs. And I had a boat rod and everything else. And man, the boat must have caught 30 cobia. I never seen as many tangles in all of my life. I've never been more excited, and I was addicted from that point on. And I actually met a gentleman on there that told me, he said, well, have you ever tried one of these overnight trips? And I said, I didn't even heard of them. And he told me back then, there was no real internet like we got now. So he wrote down the information, and I called it up on the phone and everything. And I booked on the old Belmar. And when I got down there, my buddy of mine went with me, who was from California and was much more adept at saltwater fishing. And we went down there, and the Florida was being built at the time, and the old Florida was there, but it was condemned basically. Mm-hmm. And so they had the old Belmar boat, and it was incredible. It was an old tuna boat, literally had a heated handrails in it, and it broke down pretty regular. But the first trip I went on, I literally was fishing up on the bow with a chicken rig the whole time. Nice. And I caught a ton of fish, porgies, beeliners, maybe some mangoes. My friend was fishing more like conventional, and he caught quite a few mangrove snapper. And I remember back in those days, you could sell fish, literally right there at the dock. It was legal. And I was thinking, man, I've got 3 times as many fish as you got, so I'm going to clean up. But everybody wanted his, and I got about half as much. So I was like, maybe I need to learn something. So fast forward, I got addicted literally to it, which there's a lot of good things to get addicted to. Fishing is number one. And I started going on a real regular basis. And, of course, they brought the Florida in. And, man, I mean, it's a Cadillac of boats now, but you can only imagine what it was when they first brought that boat in. There was nothing like it, and really still isn't. And I started going pretty regular. I ended up, when I graduated from college, I was debating on whether to go into grad school or go into fishing. And a guy named Captain Tim, who was y'all's second captain at the time, mm-hmm. He told me, he said, well, you're sitting on the fence. He said, you can always go back to grad school, but you'll never get the chance to do fishing again, and you'll probably regret it. So I literally moved down to St. Pete and was going on every midweek, every weekend trip. I was pin fishing when I wasn't on there. I literally was fishing 7 days a week and selling pinfish to your grandfather.
That's
and
awesome.
So I just kept. And you talk about like presentation and stuff like that. The biggest difference between now and those days, as far as the fishermen, you had a lot more just hardcore regulars, and they wouldn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
It was like a running joke. What'd you catch that on? Oh, a little piece of squid. And they would literally turn away from you and wouldn't let you see. And so, I was determined that I would never be one of those guys because I hated it, man. They treated me like dirt really back then. And, of course, I was a newcomer. But that's one of the reasons why I really love to help people is because that's not my experience. Mm-hmm. And I want people – I tell people all the time, I want you to catch as many fish and as big a fish as you possibly can. And that's what I want to do too. So it's competition in that sense. But that's why I'm eager to help people because that courtesy was not given to me. But Ray Mack eventually did. He did accept me. And that I learned a lot of my basic fishing skills from Ray Mack, no doubt about it.
And I think that's one big kind of shift from when you were working on deck, Captain Frank, John, to what you're talking about. Even when I was younger fishing on the long-range trips, it was a different era prior to TripAdvisor, Yelp, social media, and just the whole experience was very different. And the people that fished all the time, that were kind of more regular guests, were more catered to, and had a little bit more freedoms, and it was a different kind of customer experience. Whereas nowadays we treat everybody the same. Everybody's got equal playing fields. We have a regulars club, but it just gives you discounted trips. It makes it more affordable to go fishing more often. They don't get any preferential treatment as far as the rules of the rules. Like crap. Yeah. If anything, they are held to a higher standard.
In a good way.
Yeah, they are expected to know the policies even better because they go fishing more often. So it's definitely a different era, a different culture, if you will, compared to what you're talking about. But it's always interesting to hear the kind of the history behind it because it has evolved so much. Thanks to in part people like yourselves kind of changing that norm and that culture behind it, John. Well,
I remember, Dylan, you'll get a kick out of this, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know if you remember this, but probably the funniest complaint I've ever heard was about 2 years ago, coming off a red snapper trip, and this lady was on the boat, and she never said, to my knowledge, anything on the boat, but she came directly to you, and she said, I have one complaint. There's just entirely too much testosterone on that boat. And I was thinking to myself, man, you don't know the half of it if you'd have come a few years back.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you remember that. That was the funniest complaint I ever heard. And you handled it well, I would say.
I would say that's not the funniest one I've heard. It gets funnier.
I bet.
One of my favorites, now that we're on the subject of complaints, one of my favorites was we had a 1-star review on Yelp. And the person not only left us a 1-star review on Yelp, but then they went on TripAdvisor and Google and left us the same 1-star review. They went on a half-day trip, and the sun was in their eyes the entire trip. That was the extent of the awesome 1-star review. And I wanted to print it out and frame it because it was just so golden. It's like, welcome to the Sunshine State. And fishing outside, the sun is going to be there.
I will tell you, I had the best question of all. I've never heard a question like this. This little girl asked me, dead serious. This is just 2 days ago. She says, do you guys lock the door on this boat at night so the coyotes don't get in? She apparently where she lives, there's a lot of coyotes, and they have.
There was 2 coyotes on the Johns Pass Bridge this morning.
But she was dead serious.
I saw a coyote right there where the trail crosses.
It was just the way she said it. Just super cute. Look, and it was serious as could be. Do you lock the doors at night on this boat so the coyotes don't get in?
Remember that like 2 years ago we had that cat that kept getting on the boat?
Pissing?
Yeah. And then every morning we had to find where it peed the night before and clean it all up with bleach and soap. It was a nightmare. It was like a year. Cat. Yeah. Well, no, the cat just left. The cat just eventually left, thank goodness. But yeah, that was a nightmare.
He was just gone.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely interesting, the evolution. But there's no such thing as a stupid question. I want to emphasize that to everybody listening. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There's only stupid answers. And we're good for some of those, let me tell you. Jokingly, in a loving way, of course. So, John, want to wrap this thing up real quick and kind of give the people an idea of what are some of the things that you do on those 39-hour trips that they can kind of look to you for and look to you for support for on those 39-hour trips if they happen to catch that weekend trip that you happen to be on.
Well, I guess the biggest thing I would say is know what fish you're targeting and make sure your equipment matches. Like, for instance, don't come out there thinking you're going to troll with a rod and reel you bought at Walmart. That's probably not knocking Walmart, but that's probably not going to happen. And, of course, we've got Amberjack season coming up, and people quite often, they like the fight of an Amberjack, but I remind people you're on a party boat, so you've got to get those fish in. You can't just fight them like you're on the a little private charter or you're on your own boat, because you lose more amberjacks tangled up with people. Of course, the mates call it a full martin. They rag me a little bit, you get tangled, which are inevitable. But people ask, like, I use 100. I'm a mono guy, and I use 100, and they say, well, you need that bigger line to get an amberjack in? I said, well, you got to understand, I'm not only fighting the fish, but I'm fighting the fishermen as well, all the tangles, And, of course, with braid, you're kind of screwed if you get hooked in with that. But I would tell people to, if you're, obviously if you're using the boat rods and all, ask the mate to help you re-rig and stuff like that. But if you're looking to purchase your own tackle, talk to someone. Don't be afraid. Don't have too much ego to talk to someone about what they're doing. So if you are down there and you want to know, what type of gear to get, hit me up. I'll be happy to show you. And Hubbard has pretty much all the kind of stuff you would really need. But targeting certain species, mangrove snapper is the hardest species, believe it or not, to target. I think they're the smartest fish out there by a mile,
Hey, John,
which makes them so much fun to catch.
Amen to that. Hang on one second, John. Hang on one second. Let's see if we can do this. Garrett, you there? Uh-oh, we went back. Garrett, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Garrett, what's up, man? Sorry, John Martin's still on the phone with us talking a little bit about mangrove snapper as we wrap up here. So what were you saying, John? Did we lose John? He's still on the phone. I think we must have lost John Martin. So Garrett is here now. What John was saying is so true. I think I always said it in my Bass Pro seminars, and I start my seminars out when I do fishing seminars at Bass Pro shops or anywhere around. I always like to kind of talk about what's happening now, what's coming up, and then I say, what do you guys want to talk about? Because I'd rather talk to people about what they want to hear, not what I want to talk about. And I'd rather talk with you instead of at you at those seminars. So I always kind of ask questions of the crowd. And one of the things that I always start with, because inevitably when I ask the first time is, what do you guys want to talk about? Everybody looks at me like I don't want to say anything. So I always start with, I always kind of break the ice with the mangrove snapper, because I think personally, like on a 39-hour trip, and Garrett, I don't know how you feel about it, but on a 39-hour trip, on a 10-hour all day, the person who can go out there and catch mangrove snapper consistently and catch them often is typically the best angler. It kind of separates the wheat from the chaff. What do you think, Garrett?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you can get dialed in on the mangroves, then, you definitely put your time in at the rail.
And that skill kind of transfers across other species. But before we get into that, the comment about your glare bothering people with the glasses, now that you took them off, the glare from your forehead is bothering me more.
Son of a... It's like, he looks weird without a sunglasses. Oh, there you go. Oh, and then there's they're back. They're going back over there.
Sorry, Garrett. So what were you going to say?
It's a lose-lose. I just going to have to get some Rogaine or something.
You need a hat. Josh and his sound effects. That's great. Go ahead, Garrett. What were you going to say?
We were talking about the mangroves
and how they kind of set the more experienced anglers apart, and you were going to add something in there about another species, I felt like.
Well, I mean, as far as the overnighters and all days are concerned, and the next one is, probably, well, not so much the overnighters, but the hogfish and then the gags, of course.
Oh, yeah. Hog fishing is not easy. And what I was talking about as far as the skill transferring, being able to feel that mangrove snapper bite on a 39-hour trip when you're fishing 120, 150, 200 foot of water, and feeling that mangrove snapper bite and presenting that bait naturally enough, holding bottom well enough, making sure that you're setting the hook properly, you've got the right feel for the tackle, you're learning to cast out and get away from the boat. All those skills then transfer to things like hogfish or gag grouper. You're just using a different set of tackle.
Right. Yeah. It just comes down to I think the time and just putting time at the rail and feeling those fish, and when you're when you're catching those mangroves like that consistently, I feel like that person is thinking like the fish. And if you're doing that with any particular species, then you're going to do well.
That's ironic you say that, because I've said that at my fishing seminars before, and I always feel goofy saying that you got to kind of put yourself in those fish's shoes and think like a fish, what they're seeing, how they react, and learning the biology behind the fish and the behavior behind the fish really helps your approach at targeting those fish. And I've always felt goofy saying that, so I'm happy to hear Garrett feels the same way. So that's
absolutely.
interesting.
We already smell like them, like the end of the day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the most eye-opening things.
I feel like you gotta talk to them too. You gotta talk those fish into chewing.
You gotta sweet talk them a little bit, right?
I'm sorry.
You gotta sweet talk them a little bit, huh?
Oh yeah.
So one of the most eye-opening things for me, growing up at a young age, got blessed to get scuba certified. I went scuba diving with my dad, and we got down there on a ledge and went negative buoyancy. And I'll never forget, he set a chum block out in front of us in front of the ledge, and then we kind of scooted back and went negative buoyancy and just laid there on the bottom and watched all the fish react to that chum block. And these two 6'6", 6'7" dudes sitting there in all black wetsuits. And it was so interesting when that chum block hit the bottom. It was like instant. The little pinfish, spot tails, vermilions come out from the ledge, start hitting that chum block.
Hierarchy,
yeah, and then all of a sudden, then the lanes show up, then the mangrove snapper, then the hogfish, and then all of a sudden you see that big gag grouper shadow that's 20, 30 feet away, and he might circle 5, 6, 7 times before he gets a little closer. It took him 10 minutes probably before that gag got close enough to actually really hit that bait, and he still didn't until hidden fish had just picked it apart. The vermilions were all over it, the sand perch, and then all of a sudden that gag just made a beeline for it, and everything scattered and stopped, and then the gag came in and just swallowed the last little bit of it.
I've heard that story. It's a good story. I like it.
And then bang with the spear gun.
Yeah, and then he's stoned.
I don't remember. I don't recall how that story ended.
And then he died.
This was a long time ago, guys.
It was the cutest thing ever, especially when the spear went straight through his head and stoned him immediately.
So, Garrett, we've got Amberjack season coming up. We've got some lighter loads on the 39-hour trip. You're running Tuesday's 39-hour trip, right?
Yes.
So this Tuesday, we've got Amberjack season. This is our first 39-hour trip of our short May Amberjack season. Amberjack bite hasn't been all that great. So I was talking to Joe about the 12-hour extreme trips and how we're really doing well on those big red grouper, a few scamps, kind of focused on the mangrove snapper, yellowtails, big vermilions, and then might slide an amberjack spot or two in there on those 12-hour extremes. What's kind of your plan for the 39-hour trips?
Well, with the type of bite we've been faced with in the past, I guess, I don't know, a couple of years, it seems like the fish are bigger, but they're less.
Mm-hmm.
As that meaning quantity.
Yeah.
And my thing is going to be having the right baits.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means catching them while we're out there.
Yep.
And big tackle. I feel like we lose, I would say we come close to a 1 day, at least everyone getting a 1 day limit.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet we lose that just as many.
I would agree completely.
And it's tricky though, it's tricky because it gets, you pull up on the jacks and people start going crazy.
Yeah.
And,
When you say big tackle, though, what do you mean by big tackle? Because I think we all kind of have a little definition.
I use a 6-aught,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be a 600 series Daiwa or a 6.0 pen. something of that stature, whether it's any other kind of brand.
Yeah.
And an 80 pound test. I mean, 100's not bad either.
Yeah.
Might as well go with 100.
And on that subject, we were talking to John Martin before. I would classify Garrett as well as kind of one of those more classical anglers, still very experienced. Obviously, that's why he's a classical angler. But you grew up on the back deck of these party boats and learning this style of fishing on party boats, charter boats in this area, and most of what you use are still kind of more of the I guess you could say classical styles of reels, like the Penn Senator,
I use
4-aught, 6-aught, 9-aught.
Also, when I've got a 114H and I have a 114,
and
that's what I go fishing with.
Garrett, what I'm getting at here is not to say anything negatively. Obviously, it's one of the complaints that we get is people get upset or question because on our tackle suggestions on our website, I will say on a 39-hour trip, for example, I'll say I recommend around a 4-aught reel with around 40, 50-pound test for the mangroves, a 6-aught reel with around 60 to 80-pound test for the red grouper, the smaller intermediate gags, red snapper, and then a bigger 9-aught reel if you want to do some big amberjack or big gag grouper fishing. Yeah. And I cannot...
The bigger the better, because those things are going to eat. I mean, a big 9-aught gets a little cumbersome for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's...
But not everybody's an animal like you, Garrett. I don't think anybody could land an 80-pound amberjack consistently with a 6-aught. I'd much rather have a big old 9-aught and lay that sucker on the rail.
Yeah.
But if you've ever seen Garrett fight a big fish, it is incredible. Or arm wrestle someone. He'll rip your arm out of your socket. But what I was getting at, Garrett, with that is a lot of people question that, and I get a phone call a week probably about that. Is 4-aught, 6-aught, 9-aught, and what's an aught? Because now everybody's fishing a Daiwa LD50 or a Shimano Talica 16. Because like
I see. Yeah.
The LD50 2-speed is comparable to a 6-aught almost. In some respects, and then more comparable, I would say, to a 4-aught, whereas a Talica 16 is the same size as the LD50, and then the Avet 35 and the Torium 30, and every brand of reel has a different number now, and it makes it more and more confusing.
It's almost like you should get to the drag system.
As long as it has the same stature as what you have listed.
And that's what a lot of people have commented, is you almost need to say what drag you need. So in your mind, as far as gear ratio, drag, what are you looking for when you're trying to target amberjack?
I don't know if I could shoot out numbers. I just know that I like the handle to be on a power crank.
So
and I want to say, what are those 600s and those 60s? They're like 4, I think. The 600 Daiwa might be 4, maybe 4.5.
The 60s are typically 3.2 to 1 on the classic kind of metal American-made pens, and the Daiwa was a little faster, but the 4, they also make different versions. So like you can get a 6-aught or a 600 Daiwa H, and it could be a 4 point. I forget what the point was, but it was like a 4 to 1, and then there was a 3 to 1. Whereas a 9-aught's typically like either a 2 to 1 or a 3 to 1. And the drags on those older reels were a little lower than what they have now with the newer technology and the newer stuff. And that's why I'm blown away with those Bass Pro Shops reels we have. Those 6-aught Bass Pro Shops reels that we have in as rental rods, the 6.0 has 30. I think it's almost 40 pounds of drag. It's like 38 or 40 pounds of drag. And the 9-aught has like 50.
Those things on the power crank are nice.
Yeah.
That's perfect for jacks with some 100.
And what were you saying as far as the power crank? Can you explain
that thing up?
Can you explain the power crank to the people as well?
The on most, all your standard conventional fishing reels. There's going to be a couple slots on the handle, and it can be moved.
Yeah,
to either slot you prefer.
And
the power crank, I don't know, it just feels so much nicer for me. Even when I'm mango fishing, my smaller mango, right? I like the longer.
I like keeping it further out as well when you have those options. But those newer 2-speed reels don't give you the option. It's one size fit all, unfortunately. But they do make aftermarket handles for them. And the new Saltiga is absolutely incredible. I can't wait till we get them in the shop. And I heard they're in the mail. So
nice.
The old checkers.
I have used those Talicas. The Talicas are nice.
Yeah, the Talica is very smooth, very nice. The LD50 is very comparable, and the new Saltiga absolutely is a beast. The old school Saltiga that we had, the chrome and blue one, is really nice, don't get me wrong, but the new Saltiga is just like the same reel on steroids.
Is that right?
The 50, 55, and 60, the new Saltigas, they go all the way up to 60 now. They have considerably amount more drag, and they changed the handle. They made it that power handle that Garrett's talking about. It's got a longer throw, and it's got this huge power handle knob on it, and it's called a salt and pepper. It's like this chrome airbrushed aluminum aircraft. I don't know. It's crazy metal, but it's always straight up and down. So when you get that bite and you go to grab the handle, your hand's never going to slip off because it's always straight up and down.
I've seen them. I've seen guys use them.
Sexy.
Easy, boy.
No, man. I can't wait to get my hands on one of them. Definitely excited about those 60s. So Garrett, as coming up on before we get to my last question for you, Garrett, we got to give away another free trip here. Let's do our 10-hour all day for 2 guests. Make Josh do something. He's been slacking off today.
Josh, wake up.
Hey, we ran into a guy when we were up there in Kentucky. I think we were in Kentucky at the time, and we were at I don't know, it was a grocery store. We were trying to find beer before we got on the houseboat.
Yeah.
And this guy's coming down the hill, flies into the parking lot, slams open. Hey, this Hubbard Marina, you know. Yeah, he was freaking out. And he won. He was saying how he was going on a trip, and he won a trip on a show.
That's crazy.
What, you had your van up there?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? That's wild, man.
Yeah.
I mean in this sticks, man. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
Crazy. That's a good story.
I got stopped in Dallas-Fort Worth Airport walking through with a Hubbard's T-shirt on, and they didn't know who I was, but they just saw the Hubbard's T-shirt, and they were like, "We're going to Florida. We're going there. We can't wait. We go there every year, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome, man. Thanks for coming out with us." He was like, "Oh, you work there?" And I was like, yeah, I work there." It was pretty funny. It's so interesting sometimes the people you run into. It's a small world.
So how do they win the trip? Is it a call-in type of thing?
No, we do a random name drawing based on if you commented on our Facebook video, you get entered to a chance to win. So let's go ahead and do the drawing. Josh, go for it. Let's see who won a 10-hour all day for 2. How did you get the drum roll so well timed? It's like it ends perfectly.
Yeah, that's nice.
All right, Josh, calm down. Go ahead, Frank, with that one.
David Jaramillo from Wesley.
Yeah, what is it?
Chapel.
Yaramillo. From Wesley Chapel, David, you won our 10-hour all-day trip for 2 guests. Congratulations, brother. Yeah, coming out fishing, trying to catch some of those big old groupers with Captain Frank and a lot of lanes.
Or Bobby.
Bobby
over on the Sundays.
Yeah. Now, back to what we were talking about, Garrett. My last question for you real quick here as we wrap up the show is if you could say maybe 1 or 2 tips to guests as they get on a 39-hour trip, what would be kind of the one thing or 2 things or 3 things or however many you have that you would want people to know getting on a trip in May, June, July, or any time on a 39-hour trip? What not to put you on the spot.
Improve their catch,
improve their experience, anything.
the first thing is I would say is find out the rig that we tie, the snapper rig that we use.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. And like if you say you've never fished here, and then understanding how we plug the bait and bait and just simply just bait your hook. I mean, even to where it's not going to tangle and spin and cause problems on the way down. That's a big thing that, it doesn't seem like, that big of a deal, but maybe on a 20-person trip, you might be able to get away with your bait spinning around all over the place. It's just going to twist you up.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody else, but when on a sold out trip, just that in and of itself, making sure you have the right snapper rig and your bait and your thread fins to where they're not going to twist and tangle on the way down.
Yeah.
That.
So essentially what you said was making sure you hook your bait in such a way that it doesn't tangle you up on the way down.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And ask questions. I mean, whatever trip you're on, whether it be a half day or a 39 or 44 hour,
absolutely,
that's what your crew is there for. I mean, they're like, we have like the best crew, and they're so super easy to talk to, and all you got to do is.
I was going to say the customers that I see throwing $100 bills to the deckhands on they catch fish.
Moving on, next one.
No, but the rig, in all honesty, the rig is so important, the snapper rig, because that's when we catch the bulk of our fish on the overnighter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can, you want to, the mangoes are a great eating fish. And not to mention all the other reef fish we catch through the night. And you can really that's when you want to put your time in my opinion. During the day, the bite always slows down. It's just the way it is. In red snapper season, we target those throughout the day so it stays more consistent. But when they're out of season and I mean, we have jacks that we can fish for this in May, that's going to be nice, but it makes the daytime tricky and it slows down and being effective with the snapper bite throughout the night is important. And then, like Frank said, ask questions and pay attention to what's going on. Usually, I mean, for myself, I'm letting everybody know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how you should be set up.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying it to say it. I want everyone to catch some fish.
Yeah.
And, so I'm making sure you have that arsenal that's recommended, in all the literature.
Mm-hmm.
A snapper rod, a grouper rod, when Amberjack are in season, an Amberjack rod, and don't count out a spinning rod.
Yeah. The spinning rod for flatlining or for just knocker rigging?
Pitching, whatever, just knocker rigging, you just never know.
Mm-hmm. You never know what's going to swim by that boat. Yeah. I know this last trip they had some mahi show up. They had some tuna swim by. So you saw mahi on the 10-hour trip the other day, right?
Yeah, a mahi. I had stopped for a triple tail. There was a floating sand bucket, one of those sandcastle shaped buckets.
Oh yeah.
And somebody had came up to me. I won't say his name.
Chris Presley.
You know who you are. Oh, come on, man. I wasn't going to call him out like that. It was his birthday. Yeah, it was his birthday.
I didn't know you were going to talk smack about him. Sorry, Chris.
Well, that's why I said I wasn't going to say his name. But anyhow, we were driving by, and he's like, you wouldn't believe it, but I think there was a scamp sitting on a bucket out there, like just sitting right next to a bucket. I was like,
scamp on a bucket.
And I started turning the boat back around because I knew exactly it was a triple tail.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to it, and I had one of our other regulars that has Sven, because he had a spinning rod right there, and all he had to do was cut the line, and he could tie his hook right onto it. He was ready to go, and he had shrimp right there. So we circled back around, went back right over top of him. It was the least interested triple tail on the entire planet. Yeah. He didn't want anything to do with that shrimp whatsoever. We usually when I turn around and go back and get him, we usually get him. He didn't want anything to do with a live shrimp. And
we see them offshore on the 39-hour.
And then there was a mahi right by, I
under
didn't
the
see
bucket
the mahi,
too?
but two people had seen it.
So there was a bucket, a sandcastle bucket that had a triple tail on it, and then
a
mahi under it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Garrett, what's the most interesting thing you've ran across on a 39-hour trip?
Oh man. Oh man.
You know,
Put him on the
Seen
spot.
you know,
some submerged
the last.
vessel. Seen a submerged vessel.
Someone fishing one of your
Some big
numbers.
turtles. I like the big leatherbacks.
Yeah, the
It's cool
leatherbacks are
seeing
awesome,
those.
man.
Yeah.
I've only seen a handful of
The
those.
whale sharks. I saw a pod of whale sharks on the way out where there were like 7 around the boat.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, it was. You could just see their fins up. You'd look. I was like, what is that? I'm looking out. And whale sharks. I walk up to the bow. There's another one up there. I look over to the other side. They were like all. And then
That's nuts.
we were on the way out. So then I ran upstairs to make sure. I don't recall who the second captain was, but aware that they were around.
Mm-hmm.
That's all
crazy.
we needed.
We had the last trip before we had to shut down for the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I saw 5 whales out there, and I looked them up.
Right.
And they're called sei whales. They're really big.
Yeah.
They're like big 60-footers. And somebody had said, "There's some whales over there." I was like, "There's no whales."
Yeah.
I'm laughing at them. I was like, "There's not whales. They're dolphins." And they're like, "No, they're too big to be dolphins." I saw the blow spout, and I was like, "No, trust me, they're just dolphins." and she's like, "No, seriously, just look." And I looked over, and I saw this blow spout go up 20 feet up in the air, and I'm like, "Holy moly!" So I kind of drove over near them. I got ahead of where they were heading and just kind of turned the keys off, shut the boat down, and sure as hell they went right next to us. Big up, 5
They were
of them.
bigger than the friendly.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they were bigger than the friendly.
I remember the video.
They were
No
that big.
kidding.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah,
The only
Mike
time
Lee got a great video of the whole thing,
Yeah.
Garrett, but it looked like it was filmed on a potato. There was nothing I could do to share it.
Yeah, I think Mike Lee's glasses were fogged up. That's like the one time in my entire life I hooked a marlin. And I had this guy. I was like, "Here, take the video cam. Video, you got to video this for me." And I picked a guy. He had one eye, right? And he's like, "No, I got it. I promise. I'm getting it. Never hit record. I was like, "Oh my god, why did I just like?" Because he had already said he got it. So what do you do? Say no. You got one eye. I'm gonna get the other. Get your buddy to do it. I don't believe in your one good eye. So I ended up not getting the video of my first and only marlin, and it was, man, that sucked.
Great story.
So my first and only marlin, and the only time I've ever seen whales in the
And we've got no video
other
of either
than
of them.
in the oil spill, I have no video of it. That's awesome.
Screenshots or it didn't happen.
Yep.
That's what they say nowadays.
Screenshots or it didn't happen.
God.
Oh, man. Well, Garrett, I appreciate you being one of our guinea pigs tonight on our first ever call-in show. We're going to dial this in a little bit more. Josh has been playing around with our background. I think when we have video or phone and callers, there should be some video playing behind us.
Yeah.
It'd be dope, right?
Something.
So that way when we're listening to someone talk on the phone, there's something cool going on.
Then we could take off the headphone. Oh wait, you
No,
can't take off
no.
the headphones.
We're going to work on the headphones thing.
Yeah.
That's a future thing, but
They're nice and clear, but
yeah.
I don't know if I want
They
to go
make
an hour.
they make Captain Frank's head look even bigger.
Yeah.
Thanks, Garrett, man.
Oh,
I appreciate it.
it. Thank you guys.
You have a good night, buddy.
See you, Garrett.
All right. Have a good
Oh, I cut him off. I'm still learning.
He was saying
I
about it. He
apologize,
was saying
Garrett.
about
He was saying about
It was the weight of your finger.
I don't
that
know.
did it.
I do have very large fingers.
They are.
Very large fingers. What is?
They're like 5.
after.
It's like a 5-pack of
Our
Italian
supporter
sausages.
show. I've got a really funny joke that Smokey loves. You know what joke I'm talking about. Supporter show. I was going to say it just now, but I realized we're
you
still on the
better
main
wait
show.
that one.
That's a supporter show joke. All right, so that brings me into Supporters After Show. Don't forget, if you're on the Hubbard's Marina Supporters private group page, make sure after the live show ends, a couple minutes later, we pop live on that Supporters After Show, where we get into some funny stuff and talk more about what you guys want to hear about. And the Supporters After Show, the phone lines are open.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah. We're going to just take random phone calls. Chris Presley's probably going to call and talk smack about you talking smack.
Well,
I hope he calls. We can take our earphones off now,
oh thank God.
by the way. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. A little different layout, and the phone calls were quality, I hope. And they took a little longer than I thought, but I think they went well. So we didn't get to any of your questions, and I apologize, guys.
But that's all right. This was a learning day.
Learning curve. Next time we'll get it figured out a little better. And if you texted in a question that we didn't get to, I'll make sure to get to it before the afternoon tomorrow. Sometime tomorrow, I will get to your texted in questions. If not tonight, but who knows? I'm on 3 hours of sleep. I did not sleep well last night. Not a great thing. Pregnant wife, little infant child.
I had a good night's sleep.
I had a nap.
I had a nap today. I had a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day.
Today, you son of a sailor.
It was awesome.
All right, Josh, what did we have for announcements before we give away the 39-hour trip? We are way over time, guys, so I will make this quick. Amberjack season is all of May. It's officially announced. We talked about some tips. This is the subscribers group. Make sure if you want to join that, that's right on the top of our page. You can pop over there for the after show. We do some different things through the week on the subscribers page. Ken Gurney, appreciate those 500 stars.
Weather's looking pretty decent too this week, right?
Weather is pretty decent through Thursday. Then the weekend is kind of a question mark. So
Really?
Still a little bit of a question mark for the weekend. Pull it up while I'm talking so you can verify.
Yeah,
keep pulling it up.
I thought you were talking to Josh.
No,
My
I'm
bad.
talking about you. And then red snapper season is finalized. Keep in mind we're June 1st through end of day August 2nd for our trips at Hubbard's Marina. If you are a private recreational angler fishing from your own private boat, that is June 4th through July 28th.
Yeah, we're looking pretty decent. It's
decent through the week. It was beautiful through the week. The weather the wind has picked up a little bit through the week, a little bit more than they had called for. Definitely.
It's like showing Saturday at midnight.
Go to Egmont Key, Josh. Egmont Key buoy. Yeah, 5 and 10 hour.
Pretty much nothing, I believe, is going to get canceled, but there could be a puff.
Ooh, I can change it without asking Josh. Look at that.
Look at that. He's so
fancy. Sunday is nice. Keep scrolling. Yeah, look at Monday. The wind picked up considerably, but still not bad seas. But yeah, the wind picked up a little bit. It started blowing this afternoon. I opened my truck. I opened my door at my house on my truck, and wind pulled.
You know what, Dylan? Let's just cancel it right now.
Let's double down. Tuesday still not terrible, but it's gotten a little increased. Wednesday looks nice. Keep scrolling. Thursday looks real nice. Thursday is definitely a little better than Tuesday, and then Friday they are literally calling for an cold front. Cold front.
What?
It's May 7th, bro.
73?
Look at that. Wind out of the west, shifting out of the south. That's a cold front.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
a cold
cool.
front. It's May 7th.
Was that going to last like a 6-hour cold front?
Yeah, probably. Wind shifts back, so it's about 12 hours.
All the way down to 72.
Yeah, that is it.
Dang.
But a cold front sucks this late in the year because we're supposed. I muted us. See, I'm hitting too many buttons. Cold front sucks because obviously it brings us bad weather, and it's another weekend where we might have bad weather. But if that actually does make it here, which don't count on that weather can change completely overnight. If it does make it here, the good thing about that is it'll hold the kingfish around a little longer.
Yeah.
Because it'll keep that water temperature moderate. It'll cool us back off a little bit, dry up the air a little bit for us, and hopefully that'll make the kingfish hang around another couple weeks, which is good. And cool down the Gulf of Mexico, which will help us for those early season tropical systems. If a tropical system makes it into the Gulf, it's not good when the Gulf is 90 degrees in July, So these late season cold fronts are good to moderate our tropical seasons. So good and bad behind bad weather, brought to you by Hubbard's Marina. I think that was all our announcements. Even if we have more announcements, I think we're pretty much out of time. We're 20 minutes over at this point. People are going to start just leaving.
Give them away.
We are going to give away a 39-hour fishing trip for one guest.
Right now.
And about 5 minutes later, after we pour a drink and go to the bathroom, we are going to start the supporters after show. And next week, same terrible show, same terrible channel. Hopefully you'll tune in with us again, and hopefully the glare from Frank's forehead and glasses didn't blind you, and you'll join us again next week.
Next week I'm wearing a
powder your forehead. That's what someone said. Yeah, we need a makeup lady. That's what we need. That's what we're spending.
Has it really gotten to this?
Yes.
This is
It's
ridiculous.
gotten to this. You need a makeup lady. I don't know how much money we have to pay a makeup lady to make you look good, but we'll find out.
Well, maybe you should go get a tanning bed, lady.
Oh, burn.
Bam.
I got too much of a tan
I think
this
that's
week.
the glare. I think you look like the
I
glare
look
off
beautiful.
Your, it's like what?
I'm
It's
camera
like,
ready, dog.
I'm sitting next to Casper.
Yeah. I have healthy skin. That's what my mommy says. Let's see who won a 39-hour fishing trip for one guess. We can't hear the drum away.
I can actually.
Oh, faintly. Thomas Seville from Port Richey, Florida. We must have more locals listening in.
That's good.
Yeah, must have more locals. That's 2 locals tonight. That's pretty awesome. Congratulations, Thomas Seville. Make sure you text us at that phone number to claim your free trip. If you're a supporter, jump over to the supporters after show in the private supporters group. If you're not a supporter, you can join us as a supporter tonight. Just the top of the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page, there's a button that says Become a Supporter. Josh is going to drop the supporters link into the video for us so you can become a supporter right there. And hopefully we'll see you all next week for another episode of the live stream show. And we'll dial in this call-in feature a little bit better to where you'll be able to call in yourselves. I want to get to a point where our guests on the show will be able to call in. So you could either text in your questions or call in your questions.
All right.
It'd be like a legit show. We're professionalizing this thing.
I might have to make it a 2-hour show.
Yeah, we might have to.
Oh, we'd be trash.
I'll just keep talking.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I'm going to have off on Mondays if that happens.
I already am mentally checked out on Monday morning. Yeah. Mondays suck.
All right.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Remember, if you're too busy to go fishing,